Everyone, it's Nate. Just got back from a run doing a quick video on North Korea. You can change the speed these videos because I think slowly, so if it's helpful for some people, speed up the video. But yeah, I saw Peter Zehan posting on what was announced a while back that Russia has the exciting headline is that North Korea is now working with Russia in the Ukrainian war. The sort of less exciting headline, and the point is there's a lot of different ways to talk about this stuff. Lots of different perspectives and considerations is mostly the thing I'm thinking about. Is that Russia already has, whatever the number is, 50,000 or so expatriated workers. So if you look at how North Korea works economically, the simple understanding is that there's a lot of state-run and state-owned industries. And so when you think about how value chains are producing economic growth, economic opportunities throughout the socio-political structure, North Korea is involved with most things. In the US, we would say they're involved with everything. That would be the perception if you came from the Western world and were looking to navigate the North Korean economy. And so a large portion of that is right now, I think the number is somewhere around 150 or 200,000 expatriated workers, mostly geopolitical. There's about close to 100,000 people in China, close to, whatever the number is, 50,000 in Russia. And then if you look at oil states have always been very amenable to, you can either call them expatriated workers, you can call them migrant workers, whatever it is. And the general idea is you get wages which are higher than whatever it is in your own country. There's, in a place like North Korea, there is a large tax. There's some portion that goes back to the states, and then you get to keep whatever the rest of the wage is. So there's that individual perspective. And then, from the perspective of North Korea, if we're looking at how the country works today and what's possibly changing, first, this is like a major, it's a move in that, North Korea has often been called the Hermit Kingdom, not only because and this is probably, it's one of those terms that sort of covers up what actually happens in the real world. And it's also a way, I think, to amplify sort of individual Western values around, what we think the human condition and what we believe human autonomy and choice is capable of. But North Korea historically has, most of their policies have been about North Korea. It's been somewhat, we can say there's lots of military aggression. There's world powers that have to plan around and with North Korea on how things work. And they're also relatively neutral. You don't see North Korea always threatening to go to war because of North Korean problems. That doesn't work in a place like Russia. It doesn't work in a place like China. It doesn't work in a place like the United States. It wouldn't work for the EU. For a lot of the more modern African states, it wouldn't work as well. You're going to see all of those people involved in any aspect. But, again, sort of understanding what's going on and the levers and stuff, I think diplomatically, part of the veil of, not having any sort of popular understanding of a place like North Korea, and then, my opinion is we see things in the U.S. presidential elections. And the reality is that, yes, the U.S. is often always asked to respond to a place like North Korea and share how Western values and Western civilization fits into the broader human community, and do we have something to say about however it is you choose to conduct yourself? Is that becoming our business at some point? And, the base layer is always our own perceptions, have to somehow be let go of to understand that when you think of a country that has a really strong national and human sense of identity, and struggles enormously with other aspects of human values that cause social discohesion, there's probably some form of like fundamental democratic choice and vote against those things even if it ends up being pretty nasty from our own perspectives. And so you look at a leader like Kim Jong il and the rest of the North Korean party leadership, and you look at their closest geopolitical allies, you look at how they understand relationships and economic value chains and what resources are available, what improvements or changes or just administrative things you need to be able to do. And, this is just the point is there's always one or two things that sort of pop out. And so, I think in terms of North Korean workers going to the Ukraine, it's always this sort of like, it's like a double dose of pain, these types of things, right? Because from the Western perspective, you see these things happening and, like, yeah, what I'd say a little bit is that, when you have this foreign presence, in ways enriching the North Korean state and building what we would assume is a stronger narrative across, Chinese or Eurasian bloc, however that works. And in the West, you say, well, this is the stuff, this is one of the things, one of many things that always, this always, is a problem. It fucks with us. It always fucks with us a little bit. And so, how are like values that are generated or made possible, different ways to understand and describe and see the way, the North Korean economy could work, the way diplomacy is conducted, the things that we can somehow, hopefully, at whatever time period, come up with a better idea for. That's just always one of the things that, you got to be able to understand stuff and be able to very quickly understand, kind of what's happening and why is this pulling out new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, new lines of sort of order, management, or however you want to say that. And so, yeah, I think in 2024, when you already have two raging conflicts, you still have lots of either sectarian, racial, or religious, political violence around the world. You still have enormous levels of poverty, lots of places. You still have enormous levels of poverty within North Korea. The GDP is per capita is less than 2,000 USD. There's just always got to be something other than only the other ways that we say this type of stuff. And so, I just wanted to make this video. This is a geopolitically significant event. There's going to be people that want to research and talk about this stuff. And there's always going to, whenever you see stuff like this and there's not like an academic paper or something about why, how, like, there's like one storyline where it's like, well, in the US we have to do this too. We have to do this everywhere, but why change emerged from 2025 to 2030 because of this event? And, why this led to a more peaceful or not peaceful resolution in Ukraine. And so is that sunny and optimistic? I don't really think it is because, this fills in, I think, what a lot of existing gaps already are when we talk about foreign policy and foreign relations. It's like this is the kind of stuff that, you can go out and you can explain this stuff in your sleep. You can tell your kids, you can tell your undergraduate college students, you can tell anyone about this shit. And so the hard challenge that we're all actually in together is somehow creating these social values that are about the actual mechanisms. They're about the actual mechanisms that persist and sustain this movement towards some form of economy that is able to support itself. That's one of those things that's in everyone's interest. I don't know why that would be a controversial point. It really shouldn't be, right? When you see something better that's just happening in the world, that's how I'd say that. Then it's like, okay, well, look, this is obviously going to free up more room for conversations. It's going to buy more time for questions if that, whatever someone decides that's what we do. And so, we have this one thing that we can go out on, right? It's that, there's always a better way, if there's one better way to do things, we can grab onto that and do quite a bit with it. And we can look at these parallel movements and motions and constraints and always work within that, right? If you don't have that level of optimism, then you can't even go out and start attaching yourself to these ideas. So that's the video.